There were a few monumentous historical turning points that still affect the modern world today. The first was the division of the religion into Sunni and Shia factions. What happened was that Muhammad died in 632 AD. Abu Bakr became his designated successor. His followers were Sunni Muslims. But Ali, Muhammad's son-in-law, also had followers who believed that the new leader should be related to the Prophet. Ali's followers were called Shia. Thus the religion split into two sects. Another turning point in the history of Islam, and one that's
There are two main sects in the religion of Islam. 90% of all Muslims belong to the group known as Sunnis. Most of the remaining 10% are Shiites. While these two groups were both born during the very earliest period of Islamic history and share all of the basic beliefs of Islam, they differ over the choice of caliph, or successor to Muhammad, as leader of the Islamic community. The Sunnis believe that the honor should go to an elected member of the tribe of Muhammad. The Shiites believe that the position is God-given only to descendants of Muhammad. Since Muhammad had no sons that lived, Shiites believe the lineage descends through his son-in-law, Ali. In addition to the two major sects, there are a number of very small subgroups. Among these are Sufis, or dervishes, the mystics of Islam, who originated in the first generation of Muhammad's followers. Another subgroup is the Black Muslims. The term Black Muslim usually refers to the organization called the World Community of Islam in the West, originally the Nation of Islam, headed by its prophet Elijah Muhammad. In the U.S., the Black Muslims are a sect which combines the tenets of Islam with black nationalism, the desire for a black homeland. While relatively small in number, they have focused on education, economics, and political aspirations in the black community.
still has consequences that are felt today, was the conquest of the cities of Damascus and Jerusalem. Jerusalem in particular has significance and is considered holy to all three monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam. As a result, there has been conflict between all three religions over this holy city for almost 1,000 years. That's a very long time. The last turning point in the history of Islam was the Battle of Tours in 732 AD. It was at this battle that Charles Martel was able to defeat a Muslim army at Tours in modern-day France. This ended the expansion of the Muslim Empire that had seemed, up until that point, almost unstoppable. But Islam was not just about conquest and the spread of a new religion. Muslims made some significant cultural contributions too. For instance, there are some amazing examples of Muslim architecture. The Dome of the Rock is a very famous example of a mosque. There is a picture of it coming up shortly. There were also some beautiful and intricate mosaics that can be found all over the Islamic Empire. Books and knowledge were spread throughout the empire and written in Arabic. Our numbers that we use today are Arabic. I bet you didn't know that. They built libraries to keep the books and look after the knowledge of the ancient world. Knowledge that was lost in Europe, where the barbarians had practically destroyed everything that the Romans had accomplished. Have you ever played chess? Did you know that the version of the game that we play today was developed in the Muslim world? Yes, the Islamic empires had a massive contribution to our modern culture. There were many scientific contributions that can be credited to the rise of Islam. A workable system of numerals was borrowed from India and developed into the Arabic numerals we use today. More importantly, these numbers included a new concept that was ignored by Greek and Roman mathematicians, the idea of zero. As a result, a Muslim mathematician, Al-Khwarizmi, developed algebra. Just think of all the math you would not have to do if he hadn't developed algebra. In medicine, Ibn Sina collected all the knowledge of the ancients in the world's first medicine textbook. In addition to these developments, the continued trade enabled scholars to expand their geographical knowledge of the world and create quite accurate maps for the time. So that's the Islamic civilization for you. The creation of a new religion challenged the existing geographic, political and religious cultures of the day. Empires were created and conflicts began that were unresolvable even up to the present day. Until the next time, goodbye.
Regain the Holy Land began in the year 1095, at a time when Western Europe was just emerging from the Dark Ages, and a religious fervor was sweeping the land, as magnificent new cathedrals and monasteries sprouted up everywhere. At this time, the Pope was asked by the Byzantine Emperor for his help in protecting the Christian citizens of Constantinople from the increasing attacks by Muslim Turks. The Pope agreed, hoping this gesture might make it possible for him to gain control over the Orthodox churches of the East. It was here in Clermont, France, that the Pope preached the First Crusade. He summoned all Christian warriors to arms, to help their fellow Christians in the East defend themselves from the Muslims, and to regain control of the Holy Land. For those who left their homes to join the crusade, the Pope offered a wonderful reward, the removal of all punishment for their sins, which opened up the pathway to heaven. The Crusader depicted here was Robert, Duke of Normandy. He was the son of William the Conqueror, the Norman lord who became king after he conquered England in the year 1066. Robert was one of the most famous men to join the First Crusade. But he was just one among many thousands of people from Western Europe who made the long, and at that time extremely difficult journey to fight in the Holy Land. By 1099, the First Crusade had achieved its goals. The Crusaders had taken the great fortress city of Antioch, and had then gone on to capture Jerusalem, viciously slaughtering its citizens in the process. By 10 years after the First Crusade, 4 new states had been founded in the Near East. These were the Crusader principalities of Edessa, Antioch, Jerusalem, and Tripoli, each of which was ruled by a French knight who had led the crusade. So for a time, a large area existed along the eastern Mediterranean, where feudal lords built French-style castles and imposed the strange customs of their homeland upon the local people. But these principalities didn't last for long, for in 1144, the state of Edessa was recaptured by the Muslims, provoking a second crusade. Over the next 126 years, men displaying the symbol of the cross on their shields engaged in 6 more crusades. Most were unsuccessful, and in the end, the Muslims recaptured all their lost land, and the Christian settlements were wiped out. Strangely enough, the Fourth Crusade resulted in the deaths of large numbers of Orthodox Christians at the hands of the Catholic Crusaders. This occurred because the ruler of Venice, which at that time was a very powerful, independent trading kingdom, had worked out a deal to provide the Crusaders with extra boats and soldiers so they could capture Constantinople, the wealthiest city in the world. Thus, in the year 1204, as the Crusaders anchored in the harbor at Constantinople, they seemed to have forgotten all about their Muslim foes, for the battle that followed turned into a 3-day orgy of looting, raping, and killing. The Crusaders even smashed the altar of the sacred church of Santa Sofia and took the pieces home as souvenirs. As a result of the Fourth Crusade, the ruler of Venice personally crowned the new emperor he had chosen for Byzantium, and in this way, Italians ended up ruling the empire for the next 60 years. And it was during this time that these 4 magnificent bronze horses, symbols of the greatness of the Byzantine Empire, that for 6 centuries had graced the splendid hippodrome of Constantinople, were hauled off to Venice, where they remain to this day. In the century and a half that followed the last crusade, the Byzantine Empire continued to crumble until it was so weakened it finally fell to the Turks in 1453, and the new rulers changed the religion of the world's first Christian state to Islam. During the era of the Crusades, roughly 6,000 people a year, both crusaders and pilgrims, made the journey to the East. As they returned home to Europe, they brought back tales of the fantastic new things they had seen. But they also came back with products that were unknown in the West, such as sugar, rice, cotton, and carpets. And because in the towns of Europe demand for these new products was great, a brisk trade soon developed between East and West. And with this growth in commerce came increased prosperity, accompanied by an exchange of new ideas that helped fuel the cultural rebirth of the West, called the Renaissance.